Hi, I'm Andrew Levine, the CEO of Koinos Group, and in today's episode of the Koinos Group podcast, I'll be interviewing Vishnu Korde, who is the CEO and chief architect behind StackOS, which is a decentralized infrastructure protocol that enables anyone to contribute their compute resources to a decentralized cloud that developers can use to deploy their full stack applications seamlessly and anonymously. What I found most interesting about the StackOS story was that this was a product that really emerged out of necessity because they were building another product called Integro, which was a learning management system that distributed crypto, but they found that all the infrastructure was centralized that they were building on, and they didn't have any options. So they decided to build a decentralized infrastructure layer. And it wasn't until one of their advisors saw what they were doing and said, hey, that's a product. That's something that lots of developers in this space need, that they realized that they had something incredibly valuable on their hands. And that really mirrors the experience of the Koinos Group, in that the most innovative solutions in the Koinos blockchain came out of our experience working on the Steem blockchain and understanding what the pain points were for developers and what we could have done differently to make the blockchain orders of magnitude easier, faster, more profitable to develop on. So the interview with Vishnu was super interesting. He's got a great background. He's super knowledgeable. And he even gives us a kind of surprise announcement, which you'll have to stick around till the end to hear. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Vishnu, who's going to start by telling us a little bit about himself.
My name is Vishnu Korde. I'm the CEO and chief architect of StackOS. I have my undergrad in engineering, mechanical engineering, and what I like to talk about at that time was I did build a cryogenic engine, which is was designed to be used at nuclear facilities and has also been tested in one. So which is really cool about that. I've got a patent on that one, and then soon while doing that or making that product, it was interesting because that's what led me to IT and to basically software. So just began with trying to write softwares, because you can't just build something out without actually having software behind it, and for simulating all these things. So I went ahead, did a lot of digging into coding, and got interested in that, right? But also trying to explore my management side of things, my creativity side of it. Went ahead and I have my two masters now. One is in international business from Hult in Cambridge, and then my second master's is in finance from Harvard University, out of Cambridge in Boston. Um, and I've traveled a lot in the US, been here for almost 10 years, worked across industries, large and small. And interestingly, most of them has been in the cloud, trying to move industries into the cloud environments from the data centers. So I've got a lot of experience on that front, right? So while I was doing this, and almost 3 years back, we started working on a product called Integro, which was a learning management system, which would reward people with micro scholarships. But then it was still a centralized service. We had to create a decentralized infrastructure layer for that. So that is what which we were working on. Now, while we made that, one of our advisors, Fabio, he suggested to us like, hey, Vishnu, you know what? This learning management is great, but your infrastructure protocol is very, very powerful, and you must look at it as something, as an opportunity which can really get much wider adoption and also add a lot of value to the space. So it was pretty exciting. I was like, okay, let me do some market research. We spoke to some folks, and it was very, very clear that this in protocol layer for infrastructure is something which no one has, and I think it's going to change the world, right? So we went ahead and started working towards it. After painstakingly working for like so long, we are, I think, in a pretty good state to launch. Um, Almost pretty much about a month back, we had firstly made our kind of a soft launch, but on a test net, and we had within few hours about 1,000 applications deployed, right? So which was pretty fascinating, again, as a validation of what we were doing. But I think one thing which we are really excited about was it is the user experience. So the biggest way which we got so much adoption was not the technology, while it was very hard, right? But the simplicity on how can you make a blockchain project not look like a blockchain project. So that was the power behind it, and it really gave a huge pump. So I think this is it's to go over like what we are doing here. Um, what we're building is a decentralized infrastructure protocol, right? And the goal is that how would you how would anyone in the world be able to offer their compute resources, maybe their compute resources in AWS, GCP, in an account on a data center, or a data center provider itself, right? So any of these entities can start providing their compute resources to the decentralized cloud, and then any developer in the world should be able to seamlessly deploy applications on it. And when I say what sets it differently is applications which are stateless, right? uh, Applications which are stateful, right? And then also talking about full stack applications, which is which people are not really seen in the blockchain space. So how do you get that environment, offer those to people, and be able to seamlessly deploy applications in an anonymous manner, right? You'll never know censorship resistance. So it's something that's very powerful. I think we're building in here, and I think we're in pretty good shape and form to really make a difference.
Based on our experience working on the Steam blockchain, working with application developers, seeing how people try to use a blockchain, I can totally validate your approach. We saw people trying to turn Steam, and I think we see this on every used blockchain protocol. They're trying to turn it into decentralized infrastructure, but it's not. They're trying to treat it like this MySQL database that they can cram their entire application into. And that's the worst way to pretty
Yeah.
much use it. And so I think the idea of offering a specific solution for that, no, this is decentralized infrastructure. This is how you launch your app. And so the idea is that you'll make it easy to launch different decentralized apps onto different decentralized protocols as well. So you'll support multiple protocols.
Yes. Yeah. So, so when you look into the blockchain space, right, people keep fighting over which blockchain technology is better, right? And I think there are some products very similar. We're coming out and they're tied to an ecosystem. I think that's where we champion this. We're like, hey, people don't need to worry about which blockchain they're using when we are just interoperable, right? Anyone can use any of the chains and they can interface with the infrastructure protocol of StackOS and just run with it, right? And again, the simplicity is in the heart of it, right? That being said, we are also planning to integrate with direct people who are not even blockchain or tech savvy, right? They would be able to just use a standard email address, on the back end, have their a lot of their addresses be generated for them and take care of those transactions from there. So again, user experience has been the key in the way we design and we think, and just basically design based thinking, just putting that into play and trying to get that thing working. So yeah.
When we say the word user in this space, it can often lead to a lot of confusion. It sounds, I had assumed that when you were using the word user, you were mainly referring to developers, but it sounds like you're also looking to implement solutions for what I specifically refer to as end users, people
Yes.
who use apps. Is that
Right. That's a great point, right? When you talk in the management terminologies, the customers versus consumers, right? So in the same way as you said, so we have so when I want to categorize our users, I would do it in three, right? One, other node providers, the infrastructure providers, right? The second ones are the ones, let's say, people who are deploying applications, the developers, and a third category is the end user, right? Like the ones who are browsing a website, right? So those three different categories, and I would subdivide node operators into two. One would be the beacon node holders, and the other one would be infra node holders. So Um, and each of them have a distinct use case and why they are important for this ecosystem. So the node resource providers would be providing the infrastructure for running the StackOS platform, right? And they require the beacon nodes to protect these mesh of infrastructure, right? Because you can't have a cloud environment where anybody can just DDoS you, right? Or for example, so you need to have a protection layer for the infra mesh, which the beacon node provides. And so those are critical components of the infrastructure side. And then you have developers who are deploying applications, and you make it super simple for them to even just go click some buttons and deploy run applications. Um, and again, right, the third, as I said, the third category is a user or a consumer, right? So a person who's browsing the website, for example, right? Or someone who creates a Facebook account, if you want to explain that way, right? So for them it should be like, it doesn't matter if it is a product in the blockchain or if it's not in the blockchain. So yeah, that's how I would classify our users in the StackOS ecosystem.
So, where do you see the StackOS ecosystem in 1 year, and where do you see it in 5 years? What does it look like?
Yeah, so great question, right? So I think we are pretty aggressive in trying to get the user experience there. So when I'm going to say things which are going to be based off how easy that's going to be to adopt, we are really hoping that we will be able to get very good traction within this year. Before this end of this year, right? But you will have like a lot of people who will be deploying applications on this one. And I think within the next few years, I'm pretty optimistic we would have really large enterprises, running on StackOS. And when I'm saying this is looking into this one, that usually enterprises take a little longer to adopt things. So, but you would see that the initial flux would be coming from our blockchain space. A lot of these companies in the blockchain space were decentralized, and but yet their websites are centralized, right? So all of them are deploying on some central servers. So I would assume a big flux of the injection of these applications, for decentralized projects coming into StackOS, and that will, I think, pave way for other mid-scale, small-scale organizations to come in, and then once that is there established within the next few years, you would have really large enterprises start to deploy on StackOS. And for many reasons, right? It's not just for the sake of centralization, but the cost, right? And one of the biggest hurdles, these small scale and these mid scale and large scale also, actually, they have this big issue. And the issue is that people are not able to maintain their infrastructure, which is expensive to manage infrastructure. Cloud resources are cheap. Managing that infrastructure in the cloud is the one which actually messes with most of the economics of organizations. And you have had some of these very people have lost their social security numbers, with some of these credit unions, right? And that is insane, right? They have a lot of money which they have, but yet are not able to secure their environments. It's because there are manual intervention, right? There are human beings trying to do things, and somebody's always going to mess up something. So I think this is one of the big challenges of this ecosystem, is that how do you make sure these environments are safe, secure, and can 100% just protect these environments, right? And not get hacked easily either. So I think that's where we are going to solve this major problem of not the cost alone, but also just managing infrastructure. We are also focused on a few things such as high availability, making sure that if a disaster happens, it's able to come back again, recover from the disaster. Be able to have a high resiliency in terms of how applications get run. So that is kind of the goal we should look at, and hoping that these large enterprises will really catch up and hold on to us. Yeah.
So, you mentioned applications,
Yeah.
obviously. Do you have any specific applications that you think would be especially good fits for StackOS? Like, what applications do you see launching on there in the short term, in the long term? Not just enterprises, but
Yeah.
like the specific applications they would run.
Right. Great question. Right. So, first of all, I think I use some jargons like um, like stateful, stateless, right? And I'm sure like most of the people who are not aware of that. But stateful applications are the ones which have a state, meaning that they have a data store, the disk space, and that thing changes as time progresses. So that is a stateful application, and the other one is stateless application. That means that it does not have a state, so it can be like a website which doesn't change ever, right? It's just a fixed page. So a lot of these environments we have right now are stateless. So what we are looking at is we already have implemented the stateful application deployments, right? So if you want me to categorize like at what stage what can be deployed, what will be deployed, I think many of these websites which are traditionally used by small scale, mid scale, they can easily deploy would be like WordPress application, right? They'll just go there, click button on StackOS, and then you will have the website. So I think this will be a very easy migration for those kind of applications. And then you would also see a lot of these stateless small applications, people are creating websites on, they'll be deployed easily as well. um, and again the same phase as I think I briefly mentioned this, that we are creating environment, and I'm expecting that these decentralized application or blockchain space would be the first entrance into exploring the decentralized cloud, mostly apart from individual developers, who are just publishing websites or blog pages on let's say WordPress and smaller applications of such kind. They would be interested in running. The crypto space is going to be interested in running nodes. So we do offer people who can deploy private test nets, and also in the mainnet nodes, right? So that means that very many smaller organizations or teams, when they're writing code on Ethereum, for example, they need to they want to protect their code and not show it to the world until they are ready for doing a public launch or publishing into the mainnet. So they have this niche use case where how do the teams collaborate with each other while having their private test nets for Ethereum. So they can just go click a button. Right now it's available actually on StackOS. You go click a button, and then you will have your own private test net where you can start developing your application on, test it out, make sure the smart contract works as expected, and only then promote it to your public test nets and then your mainnet. So I would see a big influx of these smaller test nets being launched first, followed by these mainnet nodes, and they can connect with the real mainnet chains. So that is the initial flux I would say coming in, and I'm hoping this is going to happen this year. We are forming some partnerships, right? I can't talk much about them now, right? But which are going to be deployed and run on StackOS, and I think it's going to be something very exciting for the community and for StackOS's adoption. Followed by, we can ask what would be the next steps in the next few years. We would see an influx of other applications which which are more little larger organization centric, meaning that people are going to write their own code and deploy applications in this second phase, where any software developer is going to keep publishing their new applications, their feature developments, and everything in that scale. And you would see these mid-scale companies coming in. And when it comes to large scale, we will have really big products like SAP and all these different services running on StackOS. I think it's going to be really, really powerful.
So I feel like there have been a number of projects that have tried to go after this problem. Storage, Sia, Akash. I don't know too much about them. Um, so, am I right that they're going after the same problem? And if so, what are you guys doing differently? How are you guys solving this problem, which I think became pretty obvious to a lot of people in the blockchain space a long time ago, and yet there does not seem to be any good
Yeah.
solutions out there. What makes you guys so special?
Right. Thank you for asking that question. Right, and this is an amazing analogy. I'm going to quote from a community member who helped somebody else explain that. So I'm going to just take those words out of his page. Um, so the question I think you asked was Sia and Filecoin and stuff, right? So the explanation which he gave was so. So you have a Filecoin Sia Coin, they are what is a Google Drive, and what StackOS is like AWS, right? So it's basically can run real applications, deploy applications, while as on files. It's a file store basically for um, a file coin and the such Sia coin, right? Interestingly, you mentioned Akash, right? And how we're different with them. Honestly, not bashing them too much, right? But it was a pretty difficult experience for me to get that application running on Akash. I tried it myself, and but I could never successfully get it to run. Right. I think it was also challenging because it was tied to an ecosystem of Cosmos, which we were having a hard time with that as well. Right. And I think that is some of the key challenges they need to probably figure out sooner than later. Um, Other thing about Akash, is basically they are more of stateless applications, which and they just choose to be that way, and I'm sure there's a niche use case there. But I think I think that's another place which we are different, because we do support stateful applications, which is actual applications mostly in the real world. Um, and I think that being said, I think we have got much better user experience across, cross chain compatibility, interoperable, and also in terms of just making sure these different services, they can talk with each other within the namespace, right? I think which is hugely different than Akash. So a few things there, right? Again, Akash provides node providers. People can do that, can deploy, run applications on it, and users can and consumers can actually browse services there. But they directly connect with the node providers. That means you can DDoS those machines, and get them down, right? So, and again, we are very, very security focused, and we have these protections which come in front of even the infrastructure nodes with the beacon nodes, and I think protects entire. I mean, if you can't have security in these environments, you are as good as someone who's just playing with some test nets, right? But for a serious project, security has to be the key, and that's how we kind of differentiate with them. That being said, right, it's a big space. I'm sure competition is great, and I think I think we're just beginning to do what we are, and I think we are doing much better now. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Well, I would put it differently. I would argue your case differently. Um, to me, what I think is special about you guys is that you developed much of this product while developing another product. So it was a solution to a problem that you were facing, and you needed solved because nobody else was solving it. Um, and and so you had a team that was working together and was solving problems, and came across this other problem that you needed to solve out of necessity. And then the second thing I think that you guys did right is that you started from the perspective of, there's a problem for users. We need to solve this problem for users like us. Instead of being like, we're Cosmos stakeholders, we're Ethereum stakeholders, we need decentralized storage. Let's build this project for Cosmos that will give us this decentralized infrastructure. And so you're confining yourself within the bounds of the limitations of those protocols. And I don't know, that's my kind of theory about
You
why a
just
lot
blew
of
my
these.
mind right now by saying that. Oh, wow. Great, Ron.
Really?
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
part?
So the thing is, it's such a difficult, it's a simple question, right? But the way you explained it, I think just kills it, right? I guess um, it's beautiful. I think we should have these conversations much more often. It will be great for our own, understanding of how we look at it. And I'm just thinking about like what you guys are doing, right? It is basically what you've learned from Steemit and the way, the failures at that point, and then say, hey, we can solve this problem. And just in the same path, I think we do connect here because, you got something out of necessity of the failures of the past as well. So great job at that, actually, and great point. I'm going to use this thing more often with people when they ask me the same question. Very good.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I did kind of cheat by thinking about ourselves, because I thought long and hard when we were starting our company and we were starting our project, Like, what makes us so special? Why are we going to be able to develop anything that's going to be better than what anyone else builds? Are we really that smart? Yeah, we're smart, but there's plenty of smart people out there. Obviously, everybody else is,
Exactly.
and so, yeah, I really didn't want to set out and do something where we didn't have some competitive edge. And for me, it
Right.
came down to that experience, that confidence in our analysis of the landscape. It's not that we're so smart, but we're capable of looking at the landscape and saying, there's really nothing here that meets our needs as developers.
Right.
And certainly we thought about the infrastructure problem, and we're just like, we're going to leave that to somebody else. And so that those other people are going to be you.
Just to extend that, I think it's a wonderful comment you made here, right? So we are extending, our infrastructure, but we are focused completely on what our experience was, um, and as I said, we were building to solve our own problem, and that is the reason why you've probably seen a demonstration video, and you have seen like how easy it is to do a deploy application on
Yeah,
StackOS.
true. I have. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So what I would want to add to that is that whatever we have on Stack, the entire demonstration video is actually deployed onto StackOS's protocol itself, right? So this is again solving a problem which we are facing ourselves, and then extending that for people to start using it is precisely what we are just doing.
So you're dog fooding.
Exactly, with dog food.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, our organizations are really following very parallel paths. All right. Well, we could go down this route all day. Why don't we wrap things up by I want to open it up to you to talk about anything that you find interesting in the space that you haven't gotten to speak about publicly yet.
All right, so this will probably be the first time I'm going to talk about this thing, in a public forum. So maybe that's something, eye-catching. So, and trying to ride the wave of NFTs, right? So, but I say that was originally the plan as well. But we want to keep some things, for the later. But it's a good time for that. So, you went to our, you saw the demonstration video, you saw our app store, and basically you also saw that you can click a button and deploy applications. We are expecting that every developer around the world are going to start adding their own, items or their applications on the marketplace, and they all will be able to use NFTs. Basically, what that marketplace item is going to be, convert into NFT, and you can use that to sell, to increase adoption of their own product, and let the real author of that product actually earn some benefits from it. So it's going to be a good cycle of not just having some digital arts on NFTs, but also having real world running applications which can be sold across the world to any other individual in the world, and gain from their adoption as a developer and also as a community member trying to contribute and selling resellers, to getting these applications in people's minds. So that is one of the coolest things we're trying to do here in the space, adding NFTs to our platform and then using that as a launch pad, basically for a mass adoption, not just from some basic applications already available in the world, but having these new blockchain companies coming in trying to build their own toolings around this thing, and then being some people be able to sell those applications and run them for their own benefit. So yeah.
Wow, that's a really cool idea. And yeah, we agree that the potential use cases for NFTs are so much larger than just collectibles. And
Right.
this sounds like a great example of that. So if people want to learn more about your project, what should they do?
So they should go to www.stackOS.io, learn about us, or what we're trying to offer there. And there is a YouTube section. I would really encourage people to go and see two videos. I highly recommend. One is an explainer video, which talks about, in an animated format, what we're trying to do. But then the second one, which is the explainer video, which I think is the real meat, right? You actually seeing what the platform is supposed to do, how it does it. So I would really encourage people to see that. As I think I briefly mentioned earlier, we have 1,000 applications deployed on StackOS, and it was very, very heavy for our services to our nodes to actually run at that point. So we did unfortunately had to stop people from deploying new applications until we have mainnet, but but at least you can see that video and learn about what we're doing, how we're doing it.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Koinos Group podcast. To learn more about StackOS, head on over to stackos.io. And if you'd like to learn more about Koinos, head on over to koinos.io. That's Koinos with a K.